Hi everyone, in this video let's understand how we can solve the system of linear equations using the Excel add-in solver. For this I have taken the system of linear equations where we have three equations related to three resources, that is labor hours, raw material and machine hours. To solve any system of linear equations using solver, first we need to represent that system of linear equations, and to do that we first have to mention the variables involved in the problem. As we have three variables in this problem, that is x, y and z, so I have mentioned these variables. The next we have to write the values of the variables that solver will provide us. So I am highlighting the cells where we will get the values of these variables. Next we have to write the equations which are involved in our problem, and if we are known with the names of the resources corresponding to each and every equation, we can also mention the names of the resources also. Like in this case we have three equations, and corresponding to these three equations, these are the three resources: labor hours, raw material and machine hours. So we can mention these resources also, but I am just mentioning the equations, that is equation number 1, equation number 2 and equation number 3 in place of the resources. As we have three variables in this problem, so what are the coefficients of these variables in these three equations that we need to write here? So in equation number 1, the coefficient of x is 3, the coefficient of y is 6 and the coefficient of z is 4. In the same way, we can also mention the coefficients of these variables for the other two equations also. Now we need to write down the right hand side of the equations, and the right hand side of the equations can also be called as the availability of the resources, and the availability of the resources is equals to 41 in the case of equation number 1, or in case of resource number 1, 37 for the second, and 28 is the availability in case of machine hours. And at the end we require the consumption of the resources, and that consumption is nothing but the left hand side of these three equations. And to find out the consumption, or to calculate the consumption, we simply have to multiply the coefficients of these variables with their respective values. And for this we have one function in Excel, and that function is called as the function of sum product. For this we have to enter array 1. Array 1 is the coefficients of the variables, comma, array 2 is the values of the variables. Now after entering this, close the bracket and press enter. As you can see, the consumption is 0 because we do not have anything in these cells where we have mentioned the values of the variables. So the values of the variables are currently 0, that is why the consumption is also 0. Now we cannot drag the formula to calculate the consumption for the other two resources until and unless we make the cells where we have mentioned the values of the variables as absolute. And to do that we have to put $sign before b and 4 and before d and 4, because we know that we have mentioned the values of the variables in this range. So to do this we can press F4 key and now hit enter and drag this formula, because the values of the variables are absolute now, so we can drag the formula to get the consumption for the other two resources. Now we can directly go to the solver, and before applying solver, first we need to see that whether solver is installed or activated in Excel or not. And to do that we have to go to the data tab. The solver appears under the analyze group. If it is not appearing under the analyze group, it means it is not installed or activated in your Excel. you have to do that. Now let me show you the steps that you can follow to install the solver. For this you have to go to the file tab. Now click on more and then click on the options. You can see these are the Excel options. As solver is an add-in, so we have to click on add-ins. And now we have to click on solver add-in, and after that click on go. Now click on this solver add-in checkbox and click OK. Once we click on OK, you can see that in the data tab the solver has appeared in this analyze group. So I am directly going to solver as it is installed in my case. Okay, the first information is the set objective. As we do not have any objective that we want to maximize or minimize, which applies in case of linear programming problem, so we will leave it blank. As in the absence of any objective function that we want to minimize, maximize, or we want a value of, we will skip this also, or we will leave it as it is. Now we have to go to by changing variable cells. Here we have to enter the values of the variables or the range where we have mentioned the values of the variables. So after mentioning this, we need to go to the subject to the constraints, and here we have to mention the equations which are there in our problem. And to add the equations, click on add. The cell reference means the consumption or the left hand side of our equations. So I'm selecting the left hand side of these three equations. Now we have to select the sign, as we have equality in all these three cases because this is a case of system of linear equations, and the right hand side is called as the constraint. So we will write this and click OK. And now make unconstrained variables non-negative. As we know that in our problem the values of the variables, that is x, y and z, are nothing but the number of units of the three products, that is A, B and C. As we know that the number of units cannot be negative, that is why we have to check this box, that is make unconstrained variables non-negative, so that we don't get negative values for the values of our variables which are representing the number of units. Now we have to select the solving method, which is the simplex LP, and after that we have to click on solve. Once we click on solve, you can see that the message that we can see is solver found a solution, all constraints and optimality conditions are satisfied. It means the solver got the solution for this system of linear equations, which is 5, 3 and 2, and now we have to click on OK. So this is the solution of the system of linear equation, that is the values of these variables are 5, 3 and 2. So this is how the system of linear equations can be solved using solver. Thank you so much for watching.